there's a process called pull request. That's a GitHub specific term that's comparable to just asking to have a piece of code merged into the project.
Welcome to another Watermelon podcast. I'm Esteban, the other one, and I'm here with Diego Rodriguez. He's been programming since he was 16. He's a committer for WebTorrent, which is torrents on the web. They have a browser to stream movies around a peer-to-peer network, and now works with Filecoin, but I'll let him tell you about it. Hello, Diego. How are you doing?
All right. Hey, Seven. So just to correct you on one point, I started coding when I was 12, not 16. So it's been like
Wow.
16 years already. And yeah, I'm a core developer for WebTorrent.
Cool. That's a very big open source project, right? I know Ferris wasn't it. How big is it?
I would say the contributors have shrinked a bit. We're like 4 or 5 working on it sporadically, so it's not like super active, but it's being maintained at least, and features are being added slowly with a few hours per maintainer per month. And yeah, that's how I ended up in Falcon Saturn nowadays. That's my current job.
Okay. Before we move into your current job, I'd like to talk a little bit about being an open source maintainer.
Mhm.
Watermelon is an open source thing, and it's actually pretty cool having people contribute, but it's also tiresome. How has your experience been? How did you get into open source? What would you recommend to a person that wants to get into open source?
So let's start with context. How did I get into open source? When I was in university, that was 2015. I was browsing the web. That's something that I like to do. Is just like browse latest tech projects, mostly through Hacker News. I'm sure you know of it. And I stumbled upon WebTorrent, which is like BitTorrent on the browser, like sharing any type of content um, without any kind of extra application. So it's just in the browser. WebRTC adoption by that year was not the best. I would say it was like 40 or 50% in 2015. Now it's like 100%, like 97. It's pretty much every modern browser supports it, um, and mobile browsers too. Um, so yeah, I stumbled upon it and I found it amazing. Like, what is this wizardry? And I started just like hacking with it. I created a clone of BitTorrent, which is called BitTorrent,
Hmm.
and I wanted to just build it as close as it could possibly be. And during that process, I found a lot of bugs and gaps and things to improve in WebTronian itself, the library. And that's how I started, just creating PRs in improving the ecosystem, whether it was the library itself of WebTorrent or the downstream dependencies. I would just figure out the problem, solve it, create a PR, and push it, see it through.
Okay, thank you. Let's see if I can explain it in layman terms. So WebTurn is a peer-to-peer software, which means that I'm sending directly to a lot of other users my content, and they are sending the pieces that they have to other users through WebRTC, right?
Yeah, so WebRTC is a technology that allows browsers to connect between each other. So imagine that you and I were watching the same Netflix movie, and if they had this technology, if I had already downloaded most of the movie because I'm about to finish it, I can be sharing that same content to you directly. So it reduces the load on the servers of Netflix. You are um, you can fetch from multiple people, from me and other peoples that are watching it or have watched it already, and you're gonna optimize bandwidth to your maximum. You're gonna saturate your connection depending on how many peers there are. But if there are like 10 10 connections, you're gonna get the maximum speed out of your connection. So and reduce the bandwidth on Netflix server. So that's something that video sites, especially because video is like the largest bandwidth consumer on the internet, are really interested in. So there's been a lot of technologies and startups and um, libraries that work around this problem. So yeah.
That's very nice. I had to Google what WebRTC is, Web Real-Time Communication. That's great, Diego. What's next for? I mean, one of the biggest contributors, Faros, just raised millions of dollars with his new company for protecting NPM attacks. Um, what's gonna happen with a project that loses one of their most important contributors?
So I would say we're not losing him, given that for us has not been actively maintaining WebPrint itself, because he's the core developers working on it right now are Alex and I. For
Mhm.
us, has been just stepping us out of it to work on his entrepreneurship endeavors, which I think is great, and that even allows us to get paid as maintainers because every sponsorship that WebTorrent has, uh, thanks to like for us, PR and meeting with companies and just keeping it maintained and working on modules or Chrome application that interfaces with WebTorrent and their technology, such as Brave. Brave, the browser, uses WebTorrent for torrent handling. Um, Allows us to get paid. So yes, I'm a paid open source maintainer.
Wow, that's very nice. I didn't know. Well, having sponsors is great. That I know that in open source is very hard, especially because you are not really a company. You're just a repository on GitHub that actually you can see. I'll put it in the video. Um, okay, so a lot for explaining this to us. You said that you were just lurking, then found a project you like, and started committing to it. Did you have to talk to anybody, get approval? How is it? I mean, you
So
do have to.
yeah, normally for GitHub projects, you cannot just like push anything you want to it. There's a process called pull request. That's a GitHub specific term that's comparable to just asking to have a piece of code merged into the project. I'm sure that GitLab and other repositories have a different um,
Yeah,
terminology, but it's just a merge request, right? You want to merge something to the upstream project, and you do need approvals. It could be from the founder for us, or current maintainers that have reviewed your code and just want it, or are grateful for having it. Sometimes uh, I'm overwhelmed with the things in my life, my job, plus uh, so many open issues that I would just like to see through in a project such as WebTorrent that I just cannot get to myself. So when people open PRs that solve even a tiny bug, it could be a one line thing. I'm super grateful because it's just a matter of reviewing it, making sure that the test run, the test or the test got fixed to um, account for that bug being fixed, and that keeps the project alive, moving, and healthy.
nice, nice. Okay, so after you did WebTorrent, you had several different jobs. What have those been?
I've done a bunch of things. I've created a few modules myself. My undergrad thesis was a module, open source module. Um, my grad first thesis, which I didn't continue, was also an npm module. I have modules for testing. I built modules for silly things such as lit speed converter, um, and I push them out in the open. I've created services for open source maintainship, maintainship, which is weighted reviews. That's a GitHub app. Um, so yeah, just working out in the open allows you to receive feedback often, early. It allows others to contribute, and especially if there are copyleft licenses that are super easy to contribute to, as long as you don't change it. I think that sometimes ecosystems break because of licensing change. Um, but if you work with MIT license or Apache 2 license, it's going to be super easy to receive these contributions and keep the project going. And the more it's like a snowball. The more interest you generate, the more contributions that you're going to get, the more help that you're going to get, the more sponsorships that you're going to get, the bigger the project can grow, and so on and so on. So it's a snowball effect, and but it's hard to keep it going because at least one person has to be like there, you know. Uh, and it's I would say it's sad when projects die because the core maintainer or the author just didn't continue working on it, and I think it's a valid reason. I think nobody is entitled to more work, like free work, just because it's like, hey, you build this thing. I appreciate it, but I need these things. Like, no, you're not entitled to anything. If you want extra stuff, you can create a PR, build it yourself, and maybe because it's not a sure thing, I'm gonna integrate it to the core project. Because I've seen a lot of proposals like, hey, I want WebTorrent to do these things, and it's out of scope, you know. WebTorrent itself is just a torrent library, and we don't want to add extra stuff around it to keep it lean and to keep it easy to test, easy to learn about it, and so on.
That is great, honestly. I'm thinking that WebTurn is a protocol that you just move to the web, but nowadays you're working on a protocol that's being created for blockchain. Could you explain a little bit about that,
Mhm.
please?
So yeah, WebTorrent is based on BitTorrent V1 protocol. It does have a few parts enabled for BitTorrent V2, um, but it's a protocol that already existed, and just the transport was changed to WebRTC to be supported on the browsers. The torrents are tracked instead of with DHT and the TCP trackers and HTTP trackers. They're tracked with a specific tracker, which is built with WebSockets, which can work on the browser too. So it's pretty much BitTorrent on the browser with WebRTC peers and WebSocket trackers. And so out of WebTorrent and all this browser technology, there's a company that's called Arc, and Arc is a peer-to-peer CDN. So how does that work? Whenever you go to a website, whatever content you fetch, you will also be sharing with the same people in that website and other websites. If there's a very popular content that's just like viral content across the web, you're going to download it and you're going to share it. And how Arc works is that the website owner, instead of having to have ads, because ads suck, is going to get paid through the content that you share. So you can browse the content easily. It's available. It's going to be fast because it's going to be fetched from multiple peers, not just one server, and you get paid for it as a website owner. So it's a I would say replacement, but it's just a pretty good alternative to ads as a website owner or operator. And what happened was that um, Arc was had two options, which is do an exit like sell or raise more money or turn into blockchain because the hype would have allowed us to create a token and continue working with that raised money instead of venture capital. And Protocol Labs, which is um, I would say the company behind Filecoin, they have a storage, which is Filecoin itself, but the distribution is not optimized. You can fetch your content back from a storage provider, but it's going to be just one link, right? It's just going to be in one location. How do Web2's websites solve that? How do tiny video sites operators solve that? Is with CDNs. So CDNs, which mean content delivery network, put your content in multiple places. So if you're in Colombia, you would be downloading the content hopefully from a Colombian server instead of a Europe server. And a person in India is going to be downloading the content from an Indian server. So it's replicated. The content is replicated across the globe, um, and users fetch from the closest location. And that's great for latency. That's great for bandwidth. That's great for having enough bandwidth to serve the users. And given that ARC was a peer-to-peer distributed CDN, all the expertise, they wanted it. Protocol Labs wanted it. So they acquired ARC, and I was on that boat. And what we're working on right now is a crypto incentivized CDN that not just runs in the browser, but it's going to run in servers that anyone can run. So it's a CDN that anyone can be part of, anyone can run a node and earn some money for it. Um, and I think that's the core of blockchain, like it being distributed, anyone can mine. And I'm not gonna say it's gonna be cheap because like getting into Bitcoin mining right now, it's gonna be super expensive. But some protocols allow a different type of applications. Like you can run an Ethereum node and just run some computation for other people and get paid for it. And what we're trying to achieve is you can run a server, whether in a data center to run level 1 nodes or at your home, just running a little level 2 nodes, which have a lot of storage, and then you share it with level 1 nodes, which are the exit nodes from where the content is fetched in the browser. Um, and you get paid for it. And yeah, it should be a great investment
So
given the returns.
let's see if I understood. I have a laptop laying around in my house. I connect it to the network. I connected an extra hard drive because it's going to need a lot of
Mhm.
space. And you are going to be sending me little pieces of the movie that people are going to be watching. And when I stream that part of the movie, I'm going to get paid, right? Yeah.
So not you streaming it, but you serving it.
Okay. Okay.
And if it's at your home, you're going to be sending it to exit nodes, so the level 1 nodes of Saturn. And the more storage that you have, the more you can keep like in your cache, in your copy. So if you have 1 terabyte of content that you can share with the level 1 nodes, uh, you're going to be able to serve a lot more than if you only allocate like 20 gigabytes. And the more bandwidth that you have at home, you will also be able to serve faster. So the more bandwidth and the more disk space that you have, the more you can get paid. The same applies for level 1 nodes, but the level 1 nodes do have one requirement, which is they have to be public. So have a public IP before static IP, and they need to have a super fast connection, at least 1 GB of upload speed, which is not that common like across the globe. Some countries already have it, yeah, through fiber, but it's not going to be the standard.
For a while. Okay. That is very cool, Diego. Anything you want to add? How do I start serving files to people and getting paid in Filecoin, or how do I get
So
my first commit landed?
we're still in beta testing of the test network that anyone can join, and for the mainnet, we are invite only testing the mainnet. There's still no crypto incentives figured out, so you're not gonna get paid right now. It's we're still figuring out a lot of things, such as routing, how to best route the content, how to best distribute it, where it should be. If there's a super popular anime or super popular video or photography set that's being viral in, I don't know, Canada, we don't want to keep a copy of it in Australia, right? So that part of distribution and content routing is still being figured out, but I would say it's coming along smoothly and should be out this year for anyone to join and contribute.
Perfect, perfect. Thanks a lot, Diego. How can I find you to ping you?
So my website has pretty much all my other social tags, which is diegorvaquero.com. Um, so yeah, I can be reached through Twitter, website, email, GitHub, uh, and I'm sure that we can put a link up in the
Yeah.
video and the description. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Diego. It has been great having you here at the Watermelon Podcast. Thanks for talking about open source, WebTorrent, and the future of streaming content. We'll be in contact.
Thank you for having me, Stephen. And if anyone wants to learn more about open source, learn more about WebTorrent or Filecoin or Falcon Saturn, just let me know. I'll be around.
Thank you.